There was a time when this was the ultimate flex. Not a dunk, not a three, a cold-blooded hand-in-your-face mid-range jumper. It was poetry in motion. It was personal. You didn't just score, you declared dominance. You told your defender, you can't stop me, even when you know exactly what I'm about to do. This wasn't just a shot. It was a statement. It was how legends were made. The mid-range was everywhere. It was the default. If you wanted to be great in the NBA, this was part of your tool set. Fast forward to now, and it's almost gone. Today, players are taught to avoid it. Teams design entire systems to erase it, and front offices punish it with contracts and playing times. That doesn't matter if you're good at it. If it's not efficient on paper, it's not welcome on the floor. We live in the age of the three, of layups, analytics, of efficiency. But something feels off. Something about the game we grew up with. The game where skill, patience, and footwork ruled the half court is disappearing. The mid-range isn't just less popular. It's endangered. A dying art form in a league obsessed with numbers. But how did this happen? Why did it happen? And can it ever come back? Let's take a step back to when the mid-range was everywhere. Before threes were king, before spacing became gospel, before NBA offenses looked like five guys orbiting the perimeter, there was this, the mid-range game. From the late 80s through the early 2000s, the mid-range was not just part of the game, it was the centerpiece. It was the land of ISO kings, the playground of technicians, because in an era where hand-checking was allowed and spacing was tight, you didn't have five-out lineups and wide-open driving lanes. You had to make your own space, and that meant mastering the in-between, the pull-up, the turnaround, the step-in jumper off the screen. Michael Jordan didn't just live in the mid-range, he owned it. Every game-winning shot, every dagger, every playoff moment, they came from the space just inside the arc. And when the league was his, the mid-range was sacred ground. Even role players had to have it. You weren't getting minutes as a shooting guard or a small forward if you couldn't hit a 15-footer. There was no spacing bailout, no kick out for three. You needed a counter when your defender cut off the drive. And the mid-range, that was the answer. Dirk revolutionized it for the big men. D-Wade weaponized it with slashing rhythm. Kobe, he turned it into theater. The mid-range wasn't just effective, it was beautiful. A mix of ballet and brutality, rhythm, balance, and toughness all wrapped in one shot. The shot that won Jordan his sixth ring, mid-range. The shot that buried the Suns in 2010, mid-range. The shot that defined two eras of greatness, mid-range. At its peak, the mid-range wasn't just accepted, it was celebrated. Coaches built offenses around it. Players trained their whole lives for it, and fans loved it, because it was the battleground for the one-on-one duel. You earned buckets there. The very thing that made it so hard, so beautiful, was also its downfall. Because just a few years later, the mid-range wouldn't be the go-to weapon anymore. It would become a liability. It didn't happen overnight, but by the early 2010s, a new voice had entered the NBA conversation. It wasn't just a former player. It wasn't an old-school coach. It was a data analyst. Daryl Morey, a Harvard MBA with a mind for numbers. He wasn't trying to ruin the game, he was just asking, what shots win games statistically? And the numbers were clear. Mid-range shots, tough, contested, and low percentage, offered poor returns. Three-pointers, despite being longer, were worth more and hit at decent rates. Layups and dunks, high efficiency, high reward. From a spreadsheet standpoint, the mid-range was the worst shot in basketball. So Morey told his team, no mid-range, none. You either get to the rim, shoot a three, or draw a foul. Everything else, throw it out. It was radical. It was robotic. But it worked. Houston's offense became a math equation in motion, and it shattered the old ways. Other teams started copying. The Warriors, while different in style, embraced the same numbers. Steve Kerr, blending analytics with motion, unleashed the deadliest shooting backcourt ever. Curry and Clay weren't just good, they were efficient. Curry made it look realistic. Harden made it look calculated. But behind both was the same cold truth. 3 is greater than 2. What started in front offices soon made its way onto the court, then into practice gyms, then into every level of basketball. Young players stopped practicing the mid-range. Trainers focused on layups and deep threes. Coaches benched players who wasted possessions in the in-between. And just like that, the mid-range, once the throne of legends, was statistically erased. Not because it stopped working, not because players forgot how, but because numbers told them not to even try. The mid-range didn't die in a blaze of glory. It died slowly, silently, suffocated by spreadsheets and algorithms. And the worst part, the league moved on without mourning it. But while the numbers made sense, did the game still feel the same? Efficiency was supposed to make basketball better, cleaner, smarter, more effective. And in a way it did. Scoring went up, offenses became optimized, front offices made better decisions. But there was a cost. The cost was freedom. The freedom to create, the freedom to feel the game, to go to your spot, even if it wasn't a high-efficiency zone, and bury a shot because it's yours. Mid-range scorers weren't just shot makers, they were artists. They understood angles, footwork, tempo. They knew how to manipulate defenders, read help rotations, and feel the rhythm of the game. Now, that nuance is being replaced by rigid, data-driven scripts. That artistry, it's vanishing. NBA offenses today are efficient, but they're also predictable. Possessions feel manufactured. They lack variety. They lack soul. Because when everyone's chasing the same shot, the three, the rim, or the line, you lose the chaos, the improvisation, the magic. The irony is, some players can hit the mid-range really well, but they're told not to, because the numbers don't reward it, because coaches won't call it, because Twitter analysts will roast you if it doesn't fall. It's not just the pros. The impact is trickled all the way down. Kids don't want to be Jordan, they want to be Curry. And that's fine. Steph changed the game. But when everyone chases the same spot, the game becomes one-dimensional. The mid-range was never just about shot selection, it was about self-expression. It was about having the guts to go to your spot and live with the result, even if the analytics said otherwise. You can't always quantify that, not with spreadsheets, not with formulas, not with charts, because basketball, at its best, isn't played on paper. It's played in the space between instinct and creativity. And for decades, the mid-range lived right there. In a league that has turned it back on the mid-range, there are still warriors fighting to keep it alive. Not because it's nostalgic, not because it looks pretty, but because it still works. Let's start with Kevin Durant. At nearly 7 feet tall with the handle of a guard and the release point of a skyscraper, Durant didn't just survive the analytics era, he dominated it, using the very shot everyone else abandoned. The elbow jumper, the one dribble pull-up, the catch and go at the nail. For KD, it's not efficient, it's automatic. And then there's Chris Paul, one of the smartest floor generals the game has ever seen. While the world chases layups and threes, CP3 lives in the middle. He doesn't need space, he creates timing. He slows the game down, gets to his elbow spot and rises, like clockwork. And when the playoff comes, that shot, that boring little elbow jumper becomes deadly. DeMar DeRozan is a walking contradiction in today's game. No deep threes, no analytics darling, just pure footwork, feel, and finesse. Every year they say his shot diet is inefficient. Every year he proves otherwise. And when it's time to close games, DeMar doesn't bomb away from 30. He gets to 18 feet and murders you softly. Kawhi Leonard built an entire championship run on mid-range mastery. In 2019, while the rest of the league zigged toward threes, Kawhi zagged back in the mid-post, and no one could stop him. His game is quiet, mechanical, ruthless, like a Terminator who downloaded the Kobe Jordan software and never spoke again. Devin Booker is one of the few young stars who studied the mid-range like it was scripture. He watched Kobe, copied the moves, refined the footwork, and now he's one of the best pure scorers in the game. Not because he followed new rules, but because he mastered all of them, old and new. These guys aren't just good at the mid-range, they're redefining it, reclaiming it, reminding the world that sometimes, when everything else breaks down, the mid-range is the only option left. In the regular season, you can play the numbers, you can run the spreadsheet offense, but in the playoffs, when the pace slows, when defenses know your every move, when the three is contested and the paint is crowded, you need someone who can go get a bucket from anywhere. You need a mid-range killer. The numbers may say it's dead, But as long as players like these exist, the mid-range is still breathing. So, can the mid-range make a comeback? Can it return to the NBA's lexicon as a viable weapon in today's game? As the game continues to evolve, there are signs that it may not be as dead as we think. In fact, it may just be waiting for its moment to shine again. Let's face it, the analytics revolution won. Coaches and front offices are locked in their spreadsheets, and players follow the blueprint. Three-pointers, layups, free throws. But there's something about basketball's soul that hasn't been satisfied by these numbers. The mid-range shot, once a signature skill of legends, still holds an undeniable allure. And it's still effective when it's used at the right time. In the postseason, when defenses tighten and every possession becomes a battle, the mid-range still has a place. The moment when you need a quick bucket and the defense has taken away everything else. That's when the mid-range becomes invaluable. And not just for the veterans. The younger generation can learn this. They just need to realize that the mid-range is more than a relic of the past. It's a tool for moments when nothing else works. Look at Luka Doncic, a 22-year-old star who's already shown the league that the mid-range is still alive and well in his game. Luka isn't just about hitting threes or slashing the rim. He slows down the game and takes what the defenses give him. Whether it's a step-back three, a tough floater, or an ice-cold pull-up jumper from the elbow, Luka mixes the mid-range seamlessly into his offensive arsenal. And then there's Jimmy Butler, now wearing the blue and gold of the Golden State Warriors in a system built on motion and threes. Butler adds a different dimension, a throwback weapon in a modern offense. When the Warriors need a bucket, Butler doesn't always drift to the three-point line. He thrives in the mid-range, using his strength, footwork, and feel to carve out the space and bury defenders. And when the game is on the line, he slows the chaos, gets to his spot, and lets it fly. Butler didn't join the Warriors just to shoot threes. He came to win. And sometimes winning means doing things most players have forgotten, like trusting a tough spot from 18 feet. But the question remains, can the mid-range become a dominant part of today's game again? Can it break free from the shackles of inefficiency? It's not impossible. The mid-range is the counterpunch to the three-heavy, high-paced game we see today. It's the response when defenses are too good at defending the perimeter. And if we see more players like Luka, Jimmy, and DeMar continuing to perfect it, maybe we'll see a shift. Maybe, just maybe, the mid-range will find its way back into the spotlight, not as the main weapon of a team, but as the quiet killer, a shot for the smart, the crafty, and the patient players. As long as the game evolves, and as long as there are players who understand the nuance of scoring, the mid-range shot will never truly die. It'll just keep waiting for its next great moment. When the game slows down, and all that's left is the pure art of a well-timed jumper.